Let's talk about memory. You know, that thing that can be one of the biggest frustrations when you're trying to learn something new. Well, today we're going to flip that on its head. We're going to talk about how to turn memory into one of your greatest skills. I mean, seriously? Have you ever felt like your brain is just a leaky bucket? You spend all this time studying, trying to cram facts and figures and vocabulary into your head, and you feel like you've got it, but then, poof, when it's time for the test or you need to recall that one important detail in a meeting, it's just gone. It is so frustrating, right? It can make you feel like you're just not good at remembering things. But here's the thing. What if memory isn't something you're just born with? What if it's a skill, an active skill you can actually build and get better at? Well, it is. So today, let's open up the toolbox and grab some strategies that work. First things first, we need to understand what we're up against. Let's decode the specific type of memory we use all the time for school and work. In the world of psychology, this is called verbal learning. It sounds kind of academic, but it's really just the process of memorizing words, facts, or connecting one idea to another. Think about it. Learning a new language, remembering historical dates, or even just what a specific term means. That's all verbal learning. And it's not all one thing either. It really breaks down into three main challenges. You've got paired associate learning, like matching a state with its capital. Then there's serial learning, where the order matters, like remembering the presidents. And finally, free recall, which is just listing everything you can remember, like all 50 states in any old order. Today, we're going to focus our new tools on nailing those first two. So let's grab our first tool. This one is an absolute game changer for that first challenge, paired associate learning. So think vocabulary, names, and faces, that kind of thing. It's called the key method. It's a classic, and for good reason. It's brilliant. The whole idea is to build a little bridge in your brain. You take a new word that feels strange and you link it to a familiar word, your keyword, that sounds kind of similar. And then you create a picture in your head. Let's try it. Say you're learning French and you need to remember the word for fencing, which is l'escrime. 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 What does that sound like in English? Well, it's pretty close to scream, right? Okay, so scream is our keyword. Now for the magic. You create a crazy, vivid mental image that connects the keyword to the actual meaning. So picture two people fencing, swords clashing, and suddenly one of them just lets out this huge, dramatic scream. The weirder and more vivid that image is, the better it's going to stick in your brain. Okay, you might be thinking, that's a cute trick, but does it really work? Oh yeah. In one famous study, students were tasked with learning Russian vocabulary. The group using the keyword method, they were called 72% of the words. The group just studying the old-fashioned way, only 46%. That is a massive, massive difference. All right, so that's how you pair things together. But what about that second challenge, memorizing stuff in a specific order? For that, we're going to need a different set of tools. First step is the peg word method. I want you to think of this one like having a mental coat rack. You create these pegs that are always there in your mind, and you can just hang new pieces of information on them in exactly the right order. So your pegs are just simple words that rhyme with numbers. 1 is a bun, 2 is a shoe, 3 is a tree, 4 is a door. You get the idea. So if you wanted to remember the first few U.S. presidents, you'd picture George Washington chomping down on a hamburger bun. Then you'd imagine John Adams tripping over a giant shoe. You're linking the new info to a sequence you already know by heart. Now for a strategy that you've probably used before, even if you didn't have a name for it. It's the initial letter strategy. This is where you just take the first letter of every item on your list and you turn it into a word or a sentence that's way easier to remember. And you know the classic example for remembering the order of the planets? My very educated monkey just served us nachos. The first letter of each word gives you a planet. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and so on. It's so much easier to remember that silly sentence than it is to just brute force the list. So let's step back and look at what we've got. We started out feeling like our brains were sieves, but now we have a solid set of tools to fix the leaks. Here's the cheat sheet. When you're trying to learn vocabulary or names, grab the keyword method. When you've got to remember a list in perfect order, you can use the peg word method or an initial letter strategy. It's all about having the right tool for the right job. And really, this gets to the single most important idea of all. Improving your memory isn't a passive thing. It's an active process. It's not about being born with a good memory or a bad memory. It's about deliberately and consistently using the right strategies. So the next time you're looking at a list of terms or a sequence of events, don't just stare at it and hope for the best. Pick a tool from this new toolkit you've got and put it to work. So the only real question is, which one are you going to try first?